the advantage of this setup is that regenerative braking can now be managed by software. So be extra careful when driving this car, because if the hood blows, your insurance premiums will skyrocket too. It's way lower than on the old Model Y and the Model X, which could easily lead to scrapes or knocks. That said, I do feel like the one-pedal deceleration, it's noticeably weaker now. But when I brought in my trusty little magnet, the one that gave its life in the last video, the truth came out. But unlike the front, it's only the uppermost control arm that's aluminum. Everything else, just good old-fashioned cost savings. But I did notice something odd. The tailgate on the Model Y feels really thin. I could easily press it in with my hand. It already looks wrinkled, and when you pinch it, it feels super thin and cheap. Recently, a couple of viewers, Simon Nissen and Stoic Rational Buddhist, asked me to do a review on the refreshed Model Y. Hope I got your names right. So here I am standing in the eye of the political storm, right inside a Tesla retail store. In front of me is a white rear-wheel drive standard range Model Y. Now technically this is just a refresh, but from the front it honestly looks more like a new generation. We've got a new white LED light bar running across the front as the daytime running light. The Matrix style headlights are still here, sitting separately underneath it. The air vents on both sides of the bumper are also slightly larger than before. But the biggest change, right down here in the front grille area, Tesla's added a blind spot camera. It sits really low, so it's prone to getting dirty, but surprisingly, they actually gave it an automatic cleaning system. And I gotta say, that's a shocker coming from Musk, who's known for cutting costs like a madman. I mean, the guy just removed 4 360 cameras from the last update, and now he's adding one back. Bet that decision gave him a few sleepless nights. Just kidding. But in all seriousness, I really appreciate this camera cleaning feature. Honestly, if you're gonna go all in on vision-only autonomy, keeping those cameras clean should be a no-brainer. As for the tires, this car comes with a set of EV-specific Goodyear tires, ones that are actually customized for the Model Y. All 4 corners run 255/45 R19. But here's the thing, most Chinese EVs at this price point come with Michelin Pilot Sport EVs, which are actually more expensive. If you peek through the front wheel arch, you'll notice the liner is just plain black plastic, not that felt like sound dampening material. That means when the tires kick up gravel, it's gonna sound louder inside the cabin. And if you think that's no big deal, think again. On the much pricier Model X, Tesla actually adds fabric lining in areas prone to rock impact just to reduce noise. So yeah, in terms of cutting costs, Tesla might actually outdo Leapmotor here. The Model Y uses a double wishbone suspension up front and a multi-link setup in the rear. Now, the upper control arm in the front might look like it's made of aluminum, but when I brought in my trusty little magnet, the one that gave its life in the last video, the truth came out. Yep, it's just plain old cast iron. Still, it actually looks more solid and durable than those flimsy stamped steel parts you see on some other cars, or even on the much pricier Model X, which uses a mix of stamped steel and plastic. From underneath the car, you'll see that while the front suspension isn't fully aluminum, at least the main lower control arm is made of aluminum alloy. The rear suspension, though, takes a hit in material quality. Aside from the knuckle, all you see at a glance is a bunch of black stamped steel parts. According to some sources online, the rear setup is technically a steel-aluminum mix, but unlike the front, it's only the uppermost control arm that's aluminum. Everything else, just good old-fashioned cost savings. One more thing I noticed about the rear suspension, the bottom of the knuckle is set really low. It's way lower than on the old Model Y and the Model X, which could easily lead to scrapes or knocks. Inside the rear wheel arches, you'll also find the same felt-like noise insulation material, just like in higher-end models. The rear body remains a single-piece giga casting, and the anti-corrosion and damping coating underneath hasn't changed. It's not as thick as the layer we saw on the Leapmotor C10, but it still contributes positively to overall NVH. At least it's better than the XPeng G6, which had basically nothing. Now, after checking out the suspension, you might be wondering where exactly is all the money going on this pricey Model Y? Well, it's time for my trusty little magnet to make another heroic return. Turns out, aside from the front and rear fenders, all the exterior body panels are made of aluminum. Yep, this is by far the highest aluminum content we've seen on any car featured on this channel. Only the Zeekr 001 even comes close. The only thing that can beat this Model Y is its big brother right next to it, the Model X. That one takes it even further, with aluminum used for everything, including the front and rear fenders. But I did notice something odd. The tailgate on the Model Y feels really thin. I could easily press it in with my hand, and tapping on it gave off a pretty hollow sound. I tried the same thing on the Model 3 and it felt a bit better. The Model X, much more solid, no surprise there. Thankfully the doors don't have this issue. They still feel sturdy and well built. I'm not sure if you can actually see the difference through the camera, but if not, just listen to the sound when I knock on it. That should give you an idea. One thing you should know, aluminum body panels can't really be repaired with traditional dent work. So with a tailgate this thin, even a light bump could leave it permanently deformed. Honestly, if Tesla wanted to save on costs, I'd rather they just gave us a thicker steel tailgate. It'd actually be more practical. The rear end has also seen some major changes. Tesla introduced a world first with its new diffuse reflection tail lights, which definitely look unique. To comply with regulations in different regions, they had to add a small side marker light. Pop open the tailgate and you'll see a very clean and well-organized trunk. But don't get too excited. This trunk offers almost zero extra features. The most surprising omission, there's no dedicated lighting inside. The only source of light is a tiny LED on the tailgate itself. That said, it's not all bad news. One standout improvement is the addition of electric rear seat back releases. You can now fold down the left or right portions of the rear seats using two buttons conveniently located on the left side. On the previous version of the Model Y, you could fold the seatbacks down with a single button, but there was no way to bring them back up automatically. The trunk is quite spacious. It's about 108 centimeters deep, with the narrowest width measuring around 95 centimeters. From the floor to the cargo cover, the height is roughly 38 centimeters, and it goes up to 69 centimeters if you measure all the way to the roof. The trunk has two separate underfloor storage compartments. The outer section is a deep well, and the lid has grooves so you can stand it up vertically, freeing up both hands while loading. The inner section though is much shallower, only good for small, loose items. Technically, you can slot the lid behind the rear seat backs, but taking it out again is a bit of a struggle. The trunk floor is set really low, and that's because the ground clearance is the same as the Model 3, just 13.8 centimeters. You can manually fold down just the middle section of the rear seat back, which makes it easier to load long, narrow items through the trunk. Once you fold down all the rear seat backs, you basically get a flatbed. I'll show you when I lie down, my head lines up with the top of the seat backs, and there's still a bit of space between my feet and the tailgate. For reference, I'm 1.71 meters. The front trunk is surprisingly spacious. You can easily fit a 20-inch carry-on suitcase in there. And with the facelifted version, Tesla even added a drainage hole. Funny enough, despite skimping on lighting for the massive rear trunk, this little frunk does come with its own dedicated light. You'll also find the tow hook stored up here instead of in the rear trunk like most other cars. But the biggest change under the front hood is right here, the pedestrian protection system. Inside the front bumper, there's a built-in pressurized mechanism. If the car hits a pedestrian or object at low speed, that black strip will trigger a small explosion to pop up the front hood, reducing the impact. Since the hood is made of aluminum and can't be repaired once deformed, it has to be completely replaced. In China, that could cost around $2,000. So be extra careful when driving this car, because if the hood blows, your insurance premiums will skyrocket too. Just like the pre-facelift version, both the front and rear windows are double paned for sound insulation. As for the interior, well, you've probably seen it already, so I'll just talk about what I don't like. First off, the door armrest on this standard range version is covered in fabric. I mean, come on. This is a $40,000 car, and they are still cutting corners here? If you pay an extra $1,100 for the white interior, this area gets upgraded to white faux leather instead. Then there's the dashboard, which uses a lot of fabric as well. It tends to collect dust and is a pain to clean. And finally, check out the seat material. It already looks wrinkled, and when you pinch it, it feels super thin and cheap. Oh, and one more thing. They've added an extra seam to the seat. If you're going for the white interior, keep this in mind. While white faux leather is relatively easy to clean, the white stitching is definitely not. And this seam wasn't even there on the older model. They ditched the gear stalk and gave us wraparound ambient lighting instead. But get this, the Model Y's ambient lighting only stretches halfway across the door panel. Meanwhile, on the new Model 3, they went a step further and removed the turn signal stalk too, all for the sake of pushing that ambient light all the way to the end of the door. Bravo, Tesla. When it comes to cost-cutting wizardry, even the engineers at Leapmotor might have to tip their hats. That said, credit where it's due, most of the interior, including the lower part of the door panels, is wrapped in leather, which is actually pretty nicely done. The center screen hasn't been upgraded, it's still running on AMD chips. But since it's a Linux-based system and Tesla didn't really add any new features, everything remains smooth and snappy as expected. Below the screen, you've got two 15-watt wireless charging pads still without any cooling. In summer, your phone will overheat and stop charging. Unlike the trunk though, all the storage spaces inside the cabin are actually lit up. The center console has two massive storage compartments, and the glove box, well, you open it through the screen and it truly lives up to its name. It's so small you'll probably only have room for a pair of gloves in there. The seats are incredibly thin and stiff, and the perforated sections feel rough to the touch. There's nothing comfortable about them at all. But my personal favorite upgrade? Ventilated front seats. If you live somewhere hot, you know this is an absolute game changer. As for headroom, for reference, I'm 1.71 meters tall. With the seat at its lowest position, there's about 20 centimeters of clearance above my head. Even at the highest seat setting, there's still roughly 5 centimeters of space. The panoramic glass roof finally gets a layer of silver coating. Since it's been raining the past few days, I couldn't really tell how effective it is. But just for comparison, Chinese EVs like the XPeng G6 already come with not one, not two, but 3 layers of silver coating. The mechanical door release for the front is located right on the armrest, easy to find. But in the back, it's tucked away at the bottom of the door pocket. If you've got anything stored there, someone unfamiliar with the layout might not even realize it's there. In the event of an accident where the doors don't automatically unlock, this could seriously impact rear passenger escape. The rear seatbacks are now power adjustable, but the range is tiny, better than nothing, I guess. There's tons of space in the back. With the driver's seat in my usual position, I still have over 20 centimeters of legroom. The front seats are raised by more than 10 centimeters too, so you can easily stretch your legs under them. It's way more comfy. Tesla also extended the seat cushions on the refreshed Model Y, so my thighs are finally getting some proper support. You can tell they're trying to make the rear seats more comfortable, which is great. When it comes to headroom, if you're taller than 1.8 meters, you'll probably have to sit a bit more upright to avoid bumping into the roof beam. The rear armrest hasn't really changed. You can fold down the middle seat back to grab stuff from the trunk, but just be careful not to bump into that metal part sticking out. Another big upgrade in the rear seats is this touchscreen on the back of the center armrest. Besides controlling the climate and entertainment, it also lets you adjust the front passenger seat and even fold down the rear seat backs with a single tap. Of course, there's a built-in safety feature. If someone is sitting in the corresponding seat, the fold-down function gets disabled. But here's the thing, I found the rear AC vents only have 2 fan settings, and even at max, the airflow is super weak. I feel like passengers in the back are gonna have a rough time during summer. Alright, now let's move on to the test drive segment. Honestly, there isn't a whole lot to say here. First of all, the weather wasn't great, it was raining, so I couldn't really get a proper sense of the NVH performance. Rain tends to fill in the gaps on rough roads, which reduces the road noise and vibrations, making the cabin seem quieter than it really is. So I can't say for sure whether that ultra-thin tailgate has any negative impact on NVH. That said, based on most of the reviews out there and from my previous test drives elsewhere, it's pretty clear that overall NVH has improved compared to the pre-refresh version. I personally think it might have something to do with the revised rear knuckle design and the switch to an aluminum upper control arm in the rear suspension, which adds structural rigidity. Together, those changes probably helped reduce suspension resonance. Now, as for the driving feel, it hasn't changed much. The accelerator pedal is still super responsive, but the single motor rear wheel drive setup feels a bit underpowered. Once you get used to how powerful EVs can be, anything slower than 0 to 100 km/h in 5 seconds just doesn't feel quick anymore. As for the brake pedal, it feels a bit stiff. That's because Tesla uses brake-by-wire now, so what you feel through the pedal isn't actually the physical feedback from the brake system. the advantage of this setup is that regenerative braking can now be managed by software. So even if you set regeneration to low, the computer can still apply regeneration automatically when you press the brake pedal. In other words, Tesla finally implemented CRBS, Coordinated Regenerative Braking System. In China, CRBS has been widely used in EVs for quite a while, so Tesla is kind of just catching up here. That said, I do feel like the one-pedal deceleration isn't as aggressive as it used to be. It's noticeably weaker now. One thing to note is that Tesla's one-pedal tuning actually varies by region. In China, aggressive one-pedal driving has been a hot topic, with some people blaming it for accidents. It even got regulators involved. So Tesla has changed the one-pedal behavior in China multiple times. What we're seeing now seems to be a localized tuning for Chinese consumers. To be honest, I actually preferred the older, more aggressive one-pedal feel. That way I could drive without constantly switching between the accelerator and brake. When the Model Y first launched, it really was ahead of its time, with a cutting-edge design, a highly intelligent cabin, and an excellent driving experience. Even today, it remains the best-selling single-car model in China, regardless of whether we're talking EVs or gas cars. But over the years, Chinese EVs have been catching up fast. Whether it's smart tech or driving dynamics, the gap between Tesla and local brands has been shrinking. And in some areas, Chinese automakers have even pulled ahead. With the launch of Xiaomi's all-electric SU7, the Model Y's dominance is facing a serious threat. In fact, just a month ago, Tesla rolled out a new long-range version with an extra 31 kilometers of range, clearly a move to counter Xiaomi's momentum. That said, I personally feel that the Model Y's current pricing just doesn't match its feature set. As much as I want FSD, I just can't convince myself to pay this much for a car that feels so bare bones in terms of configuration. Of course, that's just my own opinion. If you see it differently, then go with what works for you. Alright, that's it for today's video. If you found this helpful, don't forget to give it a like, share it, and subscribe to the channel. It really helps more people see this content. I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.